What's up, everybody? Welcome to the garage. My name is Buck. Across from me, I got Squib. We're just two gun enthusiasts starting a podcast. Today's topic is going to be guns on a budget. So, Squib, how are you today?
I'm fantastic, Buck. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Guns on a budget. Um, Before we get into this topic, actually, what kind of stuff is going on this week? What'd you get gun wise? What'd you get shooting wise? Did you go training? What happened?
It was a very good week for Squib.
Did it?
As you know, for many years, I have been a Glock fanatic, and
Ugh,
I was Glock or die. I was graced with a CZ75 to try out, and
finally.
that led me to a CZ75 SPO1 Tactical that just came home.
So I'm glad you got some class finally.
A little bit,
A little bit.
Still had to keep it out of American production, apparently, but
So, and not to spoil the whole episode for today, but my first handgun was a CZ75
really, I didn't know that. That's
P09.
awesome.
Massive boat anchor of a gun, 19 plus one in the magazine. Got it for $395 at auction. And I found that you don't get the chance to like Glocks when you hold a CZ because
Yeah,
they're
you got
that
ruined
much
early.
classier.
You were ruined early.
I don't know about ruined. I just
I
think I
love that
got
you
good
had. I
habits.
love that you had a boat anchor for your first one.
Yeah.
But as Clint
Hey,
Smith says,
that
a gun isn't supposed to be comfortable to carry; it's supposed to be comforting to carry.
well, and it really helps in the recoil. I find a heavy gun is better for people who are learning how to shoot handguns. Helps you mitigate some recoil and um, better for training. I think the worst
Absolutely.
thing someone can do is put a small handgun in someone's
Hmm.
hands to manipulate and then try and train and shoot.
Yep, I
I
agree.
it's a horror
Yep.
show.
But other than the CZ, brought home about 250, maybe 300 rounds of 9mm for the stack.
Yeah.
Clearance sale over to local sporting goods store. Couldn't help myself. And
So
then
how much do you usually keep on hand? Like
for 9mm,
9 mil, yeah.
I really like to have between 2 and 4,000 rounds ready
Whoa.
to go.
And see, so for those of you listening, my background is mostly in bolt guns. So I usually have maybe 100 to 500 rounds. I think the most I've ever had was 700 rounds of 7.62 NATO.
That's a good chunk. That's a
And
good
that's
chunk.
a good chunk because, unless you have an AR-10, you're not going through that many rounds at the range with a bolt gun.
Right.
So to hear that someone has thousands of rounds stuffed
Hmm.
away, granted, I respect it. I would love it.
A
But just thinking about dishing out the money to do thousands of rounds in this day and
little bit
age,
every week. It's
yeah,
buying
yeah,
4 or 5 boxes a week when you
gotta
got
get a
it.
heat.
I also took home, I think, 200 rounds of Wolf Steelcase 223. Got a good deal
Yeah,
on that. New AR is right around the corner for me, so
so
just
close,
stocking up. But yeah,
so close.
what about you, Buck? What did you do this week? What did you better yourself with as a shooter?
I have a habit of collecting guns, as many of
No,
us do. I know,
really.
yeah. So I needed a new gun locker, and I've been looking on Facebook Marketplace every day for the past 3 months to try and get a gun locker. Next to my first gun locker.
Hmm. Now,
And
do
I
you say locker? Is it a locker
It
and
is
not
a
a
lot.
fire
It's
safe?
not a safe
Okay.
because I live in an apartment and not a
Hmm.
house. So if
Gotcha.
I'm going to be moving, I am not buying a safe.
Yep, understandable.
So I now have two lockers. It looks a little weird.
It's not a Liberty, is it?
No,
Just
both
checking.
Stack-Ons. They're
Oh,
not
very
bad.
cool. Okay.
They're not bad. I have $150 in each, or not each,
Really?
between the two. I bought one for 50 and one for 100. And for that,
Oh.
one of those would cost you 220,
Yeah.
240
Yeah, the
bucks.
cheapest safe I've ever purchased, I think, was
Yeah,
$350. That was as a
yeah,
fire safe, and that was a 8 gun, I think, and it
yeah.
was way too small.
So I'm pretty tickled. I think I bought a 16 gun locker to start with,
Mm.
and I think I ended up putting 23 guns in it.
You would shove everything in there you could. I believe that.
Well, and it sucks because as a collector, I have some woodstock rifles, and I
Mm.
didn't want to put them in the gun locker
Yep.
because I also have a lot of nice scopes that like to rub up on stuff.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
didn't want to scratch any gun
I can
stocks.
only imagine what your optics cabinet looks like.
It's full.
I bet your optics are
It's
probably
full.
worth what my entire
Yeah.
gun collection is.
Well, and so aside from the gun locker, I also got, and we actually have it here in the studio. We have a primary arms optic, which uh, for those of you listening, I do it on the side. I review some optics for companies, and I publish my findings. What are the weak sides? What are the strong sides? And we have an SLX from Primary Arms. It's an LPVO 1 to 10 by 28, 34 millimeter tube. That's a big boy.
It is a beauty. I am definitely not the optics expert between the two of us,
Yeah.
no question about that. But
No
I have
worries.
never heard anything bad out of a primary arms optic.
No, well, and I think they're underrated because that reticle technology that they have in there, and I'm not saying this to kiss up the primary arms. Trust me, I don't hold anything back on my reviews because in this day and age, you can get anything in an optics market.
Mm. And I see they also sent you a mount. Is that a primary arms
Yeah,
mount?
it is a prime. So that's a GLX mount, which is kind of
Okay.
their upper end mount. Believe it or not, I have had a blemished version of this, and I say blemished,
Mm.
not in the sense that it was scratched, but in the sense that I had to claim warranty on it.
Okay.
So I got a lemon, um,
Right out of the box.
right out of the box.
Okay. So some of
Which
them made through quality
well, and
control that maybe shouldn't have.
and maybe not even that. It's tough with mounts and rings because I don't think you can really look at a set and be like, okay, this one's the lemon and this one's the lemon.
Sure.
That's a big
Yep.
issue with optics. It's such a precise thing. Which and we'll get on this topic when we talk about scopes at a later episode. Every single manufacturer tosses out lemons.
Mhm.
Every single one.
Absolutely.
Leopold, Night Force, I
Absolutely.
don't care who you are. You throw out a lemon every once in a while.
EOTech. Don't let them tell you otherwise.
Yeah, so I don't fault Primary Arms for sending me a lemon.
But did they take care of it as they should as a company?
That's what I fault Primary Arms for, and they did take care of me. I will say their customer service was fantastic. So I
Okay.
say fault, not in a bad way. I judge a company not based off of how many lemons they kick out, but how do they take care of those lemons
I
when they
completely
come back in.
I like that a lot. I would agree with you a lot.
If you're going to stand by your product. But yeah, aside from the new locker, now that I have space to have some of my project guns in, some of my iron sight guns in, and then my scoped firearms, my ARs take up a lot of space in gun safes.
Oh, I forgot one little extra goodie I got.
Yeah,
It was,
what do you got?
Bushmaster's 50th anniversary
Oh,
a
you got
couple of days ago, depending on when this
t-shirt
episode
then.
comes out. Yeah, I got
Yeah.
one of their exclusive one of
Very
250
nice.
t-shirts.
Very nice.
Had to order two because I don't know what size t-shirt I wear right now. So
No worries.
my father-in-law might be getting a really cool Bushmaster shirt
yeah.
if
There you go.
I'm not fat enough for it.
Oh, cool. But yeah, aside from the locker and the scope, really that's what I got. And then, we got some reloading setups for this weekend coming up, and some technology that comes with this primary arm scope that I won't talk about just yet because it's not released, but it's going to be a pretty exciting review. So
You got the inside line on
yes,
their technology. I
very
love it.
graced. The people at Primary Arms are fantastic people. So
Everybody needs an optic friend like Buck who knows what they're
Yeah.
talking about when it comes to optics. Because I'm like, does it magnify?
Well,
Great.
and it's tough because like I said, you can get anything you want in the optics market, but
Mhm.
you really got to navigate it well and figure out what your application is.
Absolutely. Well, should we start getting into our
Yeah,
topic?
yeah. So finally, but guns on a budget.
Yeah.
Squib. When we talk budget, I think it's fair to say, back in the day when we turned like 18, 19, 20,
Mhm.
we're in the gun shop and we finally have the authority.
Oh yeah.
We finally have the legal capacity.
Mhm.
What are we starting out with?
At 18, I started out with a rifle.
Okay.
My first rifle, as I recall, on a budget, I believe I bought a good old Mosin Nagant M9130
God.
762 54R. I want to say I gave $175 for it at my local pawn shop, and he threw me, I think, 100 rounds of ammo with
Oh
it.
my God. The
Yeah.
ammo alone right now.
Oh yeah, yeah. If I would have kept it now, I could have doubled my money on almost the ammo.
That's a little over 175 is a little over half of what I paid for the three that I have. I have three right now. I have a Finnish. I have two Soviet ones.
Beautiful.
And $300 a pop for
Beautiful.
all three.
What about you? What was your first budget rifle?
First, so I've bought a lot of guns over the past few years. I started with my first gun. I would consider this a budget AR. My first gun was an American Tactical AR-15 in 300 Blackout. And I think it was before a time when I could appreciate what the cartridge could do. I never shot it.
You
Never
shot
shot
that
it at
rifle?
all. No, never did.
I've been
And
guilty of
at
that.
18, I got shipped off to college, and I'm living in a dorm, so I can't
Yep,
take an
gotcha.
AR with me.
Yep, very true.
That'd be troublesome. So I kept it, and then COVID hit at that point,
Mm.
sometime down the road, and I ended up selling it. to a family friend because ARs doubled in price,
They sure did.
and as a collector, ARs go back down in price. I
Mhm.
can get another Thunderbolt
I
Black.
remember walking into a gun shop about 5 years ago and seeing a DPMS Oracle or something for $500.
That was my second AR,
Really?
and that was actually my first auction buy.
Okay.
Because growing up, I was a big auction kid every month, and that's part of my background is firearm appraisal. Well, that's because for 10 years, my dad and I went to a monthly gun auction.
hmm
And so you get to see what guns go for on an open market, demanded by the purchaser, which is what market value needs to be,
hmm
not what some 80-year-old guy on Gunbroker wants for his gun.
Right.
So
So on the subject of rifles, we kind of
yeah,
came up with three categories for guns on a budget for this. So
yeah,
number
we
one would
did.
be a defensive rifle like an
Yeah.
AR-15.
hmm
Second would be a rimfire rifle, a plinker or something to hunt small game with, like
And
a
I think that's
22.
that's an underrated category.
Absolutely. And then our third category will be a big caliber, a hunting rifle caliber, something bigger, something we could take deer with or
And
elk.
this one's going to be the toughest of the three.
That is going
I
to be
think.
tough. So on ARs, you had covered yours a little bit. Your first was how much
Yeah.
did you spend for your first AR gun?
My first AR was $500 for that 300 blackout. My
Okay.
second AR, I overpaid for that DPMS at $550.
Okay.
But AR-15s. I'll say this with buying guns in general: you have to pick your time right,
Mhm.
and I don't think that applies to any gun more so than the AR-15
I
or the
completely
AK-47,
agree.
because depending on who's in the White House,
hmm
will determine.
Where we're at in the election cycle.
Yeah, that'll definitely determine how much are you paying for your
hmm
AR. And I was able to get, I think it was late Obama era
hmm
for AR-15, so it wasn't fantastic.
But they weren't crazy like they were when
No, no,
about a year or
well,
two ago.
and COVID hit, so at COVID everyone went nuts, and so
hmm
did gun prices.
Yep.
As we're
And
still
ammunition.
and ammunition, we're still figuring it out.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Our sale price is almost what normal prices were 4 or
yeah,
5 years ago. I mean, I know I
yeah,
paid $12.99 a box for 50 rounds of
right,
124 grain FMJ 9mm.
yeah,
Not terrible by today's standards, but
sure,
boy, I mean, compared to paying $10 a box 5 years ago,
yeah.
I miss those days.
Yeah, so I think the days of $500 ARs are still around
hmm
if you're patient enough to get it.
hmm
But who knows what point it's going to flip the switch and go back up to $750 ARs,
Right.
$800 ARs.
Buck and I have very different opinions on what is a budget gun sometimes. My
Yeah,
first AR, I spent
yeah.
$1,400 on at 22
Oh,
years old.
I can't imagine.
I
That'll make
never
me
had
want
an
to
AR
puke.
before, and I thought I wanted to buy once, cry
Yeah.
once. And you all will hear that from me a million times. Buy once, cry once. So I bought a SIG M400 Enhance. Already
Oh,
had all the Magpul furniture on it. I threw I don't even remember what, I probably a $80 Amazon Red Dot on it because I didn't know any better. And man,
everyone's got to make that mistake
yep,
once.
I shot the tar out of that rifle
Oh
and
my
I
gosh.
loved it. And I ended up trading that off to a jujitsu instructor I had because I needed the money and he gave me a year's worth of classes plus some cash. So it's just that had to go. But
So,
I've never
and
bought a cheap AR.
well, and AR-15s are great, and I think on a cheap basis, yes, you do get what you pay for, and I think buy once, cry once is a great application for ARs.
Mm,
If you're starting out, and I will caveat, this talk is for someone who's already bought a gun. If you're looking for your first rifle and you want to go budget gun, that's great. Some of this might not apply to you,
mhm, Yep.
because you need to be a lot more picky on your first
Yep.
firearm. And
This episode is for I know what I'm doing, I know
yeah,
how to
well,
shoot,
yeah,
and how do I fill up my gun safe.
and maybe there is a beginner application to this,
Mhm,
but I'll say definitely do your research on some of our other episodes, which is ironic because this is episode number one.
Yeah,
So
I'll start
hopefully
cranking them out for
yeah, by the
reference
time all
material.
the beginners start watching, we'll have like 6 seasons published.
Oh, that'd
But
be nice. That'd be
but
nice.
yeah,
So as far as a budget AR goes, in
yeah,
today's political climate, today's economy,
yeah,
I feel like you can get a rifle. This is not including an optic.
hmm
I checked my dealer prices today. I can sell a decent Diamondback AR-15 for around $600.
and I don't mind those Diamondbacks
They're
either.
not bad.
I don't mind them at all.
They're not bad.
I would strongly advise, because I am a romantic, which means I love bolt guns.
hmm
That's what that means in the gun world. It's kind of tough nowadays to go into a gun store and try to compete with that budget
hmm
with bolt guns. I mean, you do have the firearms that fit into that application, which I would say, Franchi Momentum makes a good That's a good model to compete with that price range.
Hmm.
Ruger American is another one that I
Those are
very
great. They accept
uh,
PMags.
yeah,
I like the
well,
idea of
I have
them.
mixed feelings about it, but
Okay.
and we'll get to that later. But
Hmm.
I think $600 for an AR that has a lot of application.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot to it.
Yeah, because if people treat it as a building platform,
Yeah.
AR-15s are what I like to call the Honda Civic of the gun world.
Yes.
If you want to
Yeah.
put a part on it, there's 20 companies that make that part in
Yeah.
30 colors, and they can ship from 5 different distribution centers. I mean, if you want to change something, you can do that.
Yeah. Just if you do go over the top though, because I was the person that put 16,000 attachments on my first AR
Been
and
guilty.
made it
Yep.
weight 20 pounds on an AR-15. Just don't take it too personally when people chuckle a little bit when you take it out of the case at the gun range.
Absolutely. Moving on to like a rimfire plinker.
Yeah.
I want to say your budget should be maybe $400 to $500.
Well, and so I would put in here, and this is my 2 cents. I don't think there is any better application for a rimfire. I say application, a better model than the Ruger 1022.
That was my first choice as well. That was
That's got to
actually my
be
first ever
brought up.
rifle I got to shoot.
I see the application for bolt 22s.
Mhm.
If you can get them for $150. I
Absolutely.
don't see a lot of value in paying $300, $450 into a bolt rimfire.
Mhm.
I do see the value that comes with getting into a good semi-automatic
Mhm.
22 platform.
Yeah, Ruger 1022 would definitely be
Yeah,
my first choice. My second choice may be like a Marlin Model 88, a tube
yeah,
feed.
yeah.
Tube fed
Which
guns are cool to me.
and I, at one end it's six one way, half a dozen the other.
Uh huh.
Between the Marlin and the Ruger, it's
I'd pick
almost
the
the
Ruger.
same action. One's tube fed, one's mag
Mm.
fed.
And I
At the
would
end of the
definitely
day,
prefer a magazine fed weapon and
yeah,
something that
yeah.
is I can go in almost any gun store in this country and pick
Yeah.
up magazines and ammunition for that Ruger 1022.
Yeah, well, and the 1022 has been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's also one of those guns like the Mosin Nagant that we talked about a little bit earlier. People are gonna remember purchasing a Ruger 1022 for 75, $150,
Oh
$200
yeah.
bucks, and I was able to get. I think a good benchmark for a 1022 would be around the $300 mark.
Mm-hmm.
That's about the most of what I would pay for a 1022. I don't know where that needle has moved nowadays.
You're seeing them anywhere between 350 and
Yeah.
five, depending on the edition, because Ruger came
Oof.
out with a lot of cool different editions
Yeah,
and
and
whatnot.
they did. I'm glad because I feel like there was almost a lull with
Hmm.
Ruger there for a second,
Yeah,
and so I'm glad they kind
they
of
made the
brought it
rifles
back. And
cool and sexy again.
yeah, yeah, which is
Hmm.
good. They kind of needed that with the 1022. There's only so much you can let vintage models carry your company until you got to do
Absolutely.
something to refresh it.
Absolutely. As far as maybe a bigger caliber,
Yeah,
we're definitely going to be talking bolt gun here for being on a
for
budget
sure
because a big caliber semi-auto,
is going to
like
cost you a lot of
yeah, an
money.
AR-10,
Yeah,
Springfield, SOCOM,
yeah,
that's going to be probably out of the budget here.
yeah. So and speaking of that, I did build my first AR-10, and it does shoot 1 MOA, which I'll take that for a
Solid.
semi-automatic
Yeah.
platform. Cost $1,200 to build.
Yeah.
So I mean, you got to put that.
Which at this point in our lives is, that's swallowable.
That's a
But for
well,
somebody coming
yeah,
into this saying, I'm on a budget and I need
yeah,
something I take hunting this year.
and even then, $1,200 is a lot of money.
Mhm.
So I think some people discount that.
Yeah. And one thing we should maybe preface with this is, don't be afraid of buying a used gun.
Yeah, and
Be knowledgeable, but don't be
right.
afraid of it.
So we're gonna have a different episode on this too because there
Mhm.
is a risk associated with used guns,
Absolutely.
but that is like my bed and breakfast in terms
Hmm.
of what I love to do is
Yep.
go into a used gun rack at a gun
Hmm.
shop,
Yeah.
see what you
Every
can find.
every time I'm out of town, I see a pawn shop that
Yeah.
sells guns. Boy, you better believe I pull
Well,
in that parking lot.
every time I walk into Black Rifle, our local shop, there's a Swiss
You mean
K31.
DEFCON?
DEFCON, yeah,
DEFCON. Yep.
DEFCON Black Rifle.
Yep.
That's right, yes, sir.
Yep.
Every time I walk in there, there's a Swiss K31 staring me straight in the eyes from
It's still there.
1930s, I think.
I didn't check the
Vintage.
serial on it, but
Oh
it's still there.
man, beautiful gun.
Yep.
But speaking to large bore, my first bolt rifle, Squib, and you can appreciate this, I hope, was a Remington 700 SPS stainless.
Ooh.
Very classy gun. I'm a
Mm.
huge fan of the 700s. It's a shame what's happened to them in the 2010s. But I bought a Remington 700 300 Win Mag, 300 Winchester Magnum. That's a big boy. I
That
would
is a
qualify that
monster.
as a bigger bore.
Mhm.
You're getting a lot of cartridge for what you're buying.
Well, you're able to hunt, as I recall, any mammal in North America with that
And
legally.
probably most of Europe and Asia.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd
And
take it to Africa, but
well, I've heard some people take it to Africa, but yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't recommend that.
mhm,
But it's a good cartridge. I love it.
absolutely
I bought that Remington 700 off the used rack out of Cabela's for $420,
solid.
which was a steal. Looking at older Remington 700s nowadays, it's crazy,
hmm
especially now that they're making them again.
hmm
It's crazy to see those prices. And so, granted, I don't whether it was luck or a timing of that year, maybe Remington 700s weren't selling, maybe that was a deal. I still think that the used gun rack is almost where you have to be for these big bore
I
cartridges.
would agree. My first big cal would be I had a Savage 110 and
Oh,
243.
I love that gun.
But that doesn't count for my budget gun. I was gifted that one. My
Yeah,
first actual
yeah,
big caliber bolt gun that I bought a year and a half ago. I bought another Savage
yeah,
110E in 30-06 with an optic on it. I paid $300 cash at a
yeah.
gun show.
And I think Savage 110s, Savages in general, great guns. I have some of my probably top 5 best groups all shot with Savages.
Wonderful to hear.
And I shoot Remington 700s. I shoot Winchester Model 70s. I shoot Ruger M77s.
Thank you for reaffirming a off the cuff purchase I definitely didn't need to
Yeah,
make back then. But
yeah.
now I'm like, oh, all right, we did
Anytime,
good.
man. That's why I'm here. No, Savage. I'm a very big fan of
hmm
Savage and what they do because at the same time, $300. That gun's gonna group well.
Oh yeah,
More times than not.
yep. It dropped a dough last year. It was
Yeah,
great. It was
yeah.
fantastic. I don't know if we should really specify brand on big calibers because I
Uh-huh.
think it's really going to come down to what do you find.
Yeah.
Do you have a friend that's selling you an older Remington 700 really cheap, or do you
Mhm.
find that Savage, or do you find something else? Do you get a good deal on a Bergara? Do you find something else that it's going to come down to money and not brand on this one?
There are many firearms that are exchanged every year from people who end up needing a little bit of cash.
Oh, I can only imagine.
And you can, it's not, I wouldn't call it taking advantage of. They ask for a price, and if it's of value of the firearm, you make the purchase and you
hmm
get the gun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a lot of what happens every year. I've had a couple guns, and yes, it's unfortunate, but hey, maybe they'll buy it back from you
Yep,
in a couple of
yep,
years once you've
absolutely.
had your fun with it.
So we kind of covered our bases with rifles. Should we move on to shotguns now?
Yeah, so this is one I'm actually pretty lacking in.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and being bolt guns, I take 8 or 9 bolt guns to the range at one time.
hmm
Shotguns, which is ironic because we actually live in one of the best pheasant places in the country,
Yep.
and I have 3 shotguns in my safe. I have not shot before.
Buddy, we got to get
I
out
know we
there.
do.
All right. Well,
Remington 870 Wingmaster would be
oh,
mine.
beautiful choice.
It's a gorgeous gun. Another auction buy. I think 350 bought it.
Okay.
And I think some of those Remington 870s, since there are so many submodels that cost anywhere from $300 off the new shelf to $700 at $500, you can find them for pretty much whatever
hmm
you want to pay for.
Yeah, Remington 870 is
Um,
great. I would also suggest,
yeah,
Mossberg 500 or 590s.
absolutely. Yeah,
One that I think gets overlooked, and this was actually my first budget shotgun.
yeah.
I bought a Maverick Model 88.
I've seen those on the shelf, and I've almost bought multiple.
They are solid.
Are they
Now,
really?
I ended up selling that 88,
Hmm.
and I bought a Maverick Model 91, which is the
Yeah.
same gun, but instead of going up to 3 inch, it goes to 3.5.
Okay. Yeah.
Still a pump action, still accepts some Mossberg parts on it.
Yeah.
I think I paid $150 at a gun show
Well,
for it.
and I think a great thing to appreciate about a less expensive firearm is if you need to get the money back out of it to make an upgrade,
hmm
to get up to 3.5 inch shells,
hmm
uh, a lot more people are willing to pay $150
Mhm.
for a shotgun
Yeah.
than if you were, selling a Benelli M4
Oh,
for
yeah. Tough to move.
however many $1,000.
Completely agree
So
with you.
that's a big factor that goes into budget
Yeah.
guns.
I would think for a shotgun for somebody on a budget, most semi-autos, unless you get a really smoking deal on one,
Yeah.
are probably out of the wheelhouse. You might find a
Well, and
Winchester Super X pump around 450.
yeah, and I think unless you're running competition with one,
hmm
I don't think you're really missing out.
I don't think you
I'll
are
say
either.
that, and maybe that makes me a heretic, but I love pump actions.
Mhm.
I love over-unders.
Mm.
And honestly, I love side-by-sides
Oh,
too.
give me a side-by-side coach gun any
Um,
day of the week.
and it's not to say that semi-automatics are not efficient because they're amazing
Mhm.
firearms, but for guns on a budget, if you need something that's rugged, works.
Hmm.
Don't shy away from a pump.
No, I would definitely think, and somebody starting out shooting and
Yeah.
with a shotgun, maybe starting to build their shotgun arsenal. I think you should start with pump. It's going to teach you a little
Hmm.
bit more control with your
Yeah.
shots. You don't have to just pull that trigger again. You got another thing to do before that. And personally, reliability on a pump
Yeah.
action. If I'm freezing my butt off in a -2 degree goose blind and my space heater isn't working, I would prefer to know I have a pump action in front of
Yeah.
me than a semi-auto that I have to know is lubed and ready to go.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a great point. In terms of jams, with a pump shotgun, I would think it'd be a hell of a lot easier to clear a jam out of a
Hmm.
pump
Yeah.
in the cold if you had gloves on versus a semi-auto where you have a little lever on one side
Oh
that
yeah.
and you have a gloved hand that you can't really feel.
Mm. Yep.
So
I mean,
I
worst case scenario, you mortar that 12 gauge,
yeah,
just like you would clear, and I think that would be the best way to go.
yeah, I agree.
Yep.
I agree.
So Maverick 88s, Mossbergs, Remington, it's going to come down to, again, kind of really what you're willing to spend versus the
Yeah.
brand. But
And
I would
and
definitely go pump.
yeah, guns on a budget. I think shotguns are probably the easiest ones in this
Hmm.
category. Because
Absolutely.
I mean, even if you did want to go semi-automatic, there are companies out there. I mean, TriStar, they get dogged for being a budget shotgun,
Hmm.
but honestly, they look appealing, and
Hmm.
I haven't heard that many terrible things about them,
Out of all the ones
honestly.
I've let go through the shop, they've never come back.
And from what I understand, and I shop Cabela's a lot, the gun library always has at least 6 or 7 racks of
Hmm.
just all TriStars.
Yep.
So
Absolutely. Well, that kind of covers shotguns. Should we move to
yeah,
handguns? My
handguns.
favorite category of
And
all.
this is kind of where you're going to trump me because I do have handguns and I love handguns, but I love bolt rifles more.
I get that. We just come from different shooting
Yeah,
backgrounds.
and we do, but that's okay. I do think there's a lot. This might be one that's focused on a little bit more
Hmm.
for shooters, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that, and I will say this: handgun shooting is the most difficult discipline of the three: rifle, shotgun, pistol.
That is what I've heard.
It is the most
I guess I never
difficult.
experienced that difficulty because I grew up
Yeah,
shooting handguns and rifles very young, and I kept with it my entire
yeah,
life. I didn't, take 5 years off shooting handguns and just shoot rifles. I have shot
yeah.
both for all my life, and I got into shotguns late in life.
Right.
That was kind of my late, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
That's when I started getting into shotguns.
And I grew up doing firearm programs, federal training programs with pistols
Hmm.
and handguns. So I received a little bit of federal training. And so, granted, if you start with good basics, it gets a little easier to shoot handgun. But the less training you have to start out with, the more likely it is for you to get some bad habits. And that's the handguns are the worst to get over bad habits. And for the people that get frustrated with me saying that it's the most difficult discipline, um, I'll challenge it because
I
two
think,
hands on one grip
yeah.
and keeping control of that firearm.
I think there's just so many different schools of thought with shooting a
Yeah,
handgun over the past 100 years.
yeah.
World War II, it was standard to teach people teacupping, supporting their shooting hand with their
Or
offhand
shooting with
underneath.
one hand
Yeah,
because the 1911 was designed for one hand,
yeah,
and that blew my mind when I learned that.
yeah. And then we go to the 70s and 80s where
Hmm.
it was turn to your side and present this way.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we teach square stance on our range. You
Hmm.
are squared up so
Yeah.
that if you're wearing body armor,
Yeah.
you're presenting the most armor to the target. I mean, those mechanics have changed more than I think any
Yeah.
other, rifle or shotgun training has.
Yeah, and I would venture to say that rifles have more support and shooting positions.
Oh yeah,
You can't put a bipod on a handgun.
yeah. Not a pretty one at
No,
least.
not a pretty one. Rear bags, lead sleds. You got a lot more equipment.
More points of contact. It is just
Yeah,
easier to shoot a rifle. It
and
just is.
if that, it's easier to get your fundamentals down.
Hmm.
I took my girlfriend out shooting for rifle. I got her on 600-yard steel within 20 minutes. I can take her to the handgun course, and I will caveat my girlfriend doesn't have as many or as much experience with handguns, and it is more difficult for her to be on target, or God forbid she need to acquire a new target or transition. That's a whole different
It's a
meaning
different
for
game.
fundamentals. So
Hmm.
I mean, there's just so many more fundamentals, so many more variables when you're shooting handguns. But
I
what
agree.
was your? I guess what was your? You said it was a.
My first budget handgun wasn't much of a budget. My first handgun I ever purchased was a Beretta PX4 Storm 9mm full size.
Which you can't see it right now, but I'm shaking my head because it's a
Yeah.
Beretta.
Which,
Beretta makes great guns, but
that one is an ugly duckling.
oh,
And the reason is I worked all summer and I had some money saved up. And my mom was like, "Hey, what do you want to do with your money?" And I said, "I want to buy a handgun."
yeah,
So we went down to a local gun store. She went with me. And boy, I wanted to buy a Glock. Boy, did I want a Glock. And my mom would let me.
unfortunately,
There wasn't an external safety outside of that trigger safety. And she said, "You know what? For your first handgun you're buying, I don't want you to have a Glock." So I agree.
yeah.
We agreed on the Beretta
Should have
PX4
listened to
Storm.
her, man.
But to counter off that, the night I turned 21 at midnight, I went on Gunbroker, made an account, and I ordered myself a Glock 23 and 40
Oh,
cal,
man.
and I spent $350 on it, and I overnighted it.
Yeah,
I was excited, but yeah. So for my first budget handgun, boy, it wasn't much of a budget. I would almost
yeah,
consider that Glock more of my budget handgun. That's when I was a little more hard up. I was in college.
yeah.
I was ramen noodles every night, and I
Mhm.
think I spent $350 on a Glock 23 used off Gunbroker. It was maybe 400 after shipping and transfer. So at 21 years old, that was a chunk for a budget.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I would argue for handguns though. I think everybody should have a couple of budget handguns. I think you should have a rimfire handgun, and I think you should have a defensive handgun. And the rimfire one comes from it is a
That's
lot
interesting.
cheaper to train somebody on a rimfire 22
It is.
than to stick you out there with a 9 or 40 or 45.
And I'll object it for the sake of being a devil's advocate because 22 handguns, at least from my experience, they're Jam-O-Matics. Squib.
In semi-auto, I
every
would
round.
agree with you on a lot of that. It seems like rimfire semi-autos are the most picky firearms in
Yes.
the world.
Yeah.
I have had rimfire semi-autos that would only shoot CCIs. I had
Mhm.
some that would only
Yeah.
shoot Winchester white box of all things.
Of all things.
But if you want to counter on the Jam-O-Matics, revolvers in a rimfire are so affordable.
They are. And if you can time it right, I know Heritage does their deal during Christmas where you can get a pretty striking deal, and I'm pretty sure you can order a 22 mag cylinder for that as well.
Yeah, they used to come with them just factory, and they actually they quit doing that to cut down on cost of production. Now you get a little voucher to buy it at like half price.
Yep, that's right.
Which is cool. That's whatever.
And they're cool revolvers too. A lot of people dog on them, and I don't really know why. If you're paying 75 to 125 bucks for it,
you kind of get what you pay for.
Well, you get what you pay for, but also, what are you losing out on?
Now, I think it would be really smart in this situation if somebody wanted to kick in an extra $75 or $100, upgrade into a Ruger Wrangler
and
or a Diamondback Sidekick.
If you're staying with 22 long rifle, I don't know what you're getting for the additional money. That's my issue with trying to spend
quality,
money.
Buck. Quality.
But like when you say that it's a revolver, the frame is solid, the barrel is solid, and the cylinder stays where it needs to be. So where is this quality?
I have had enough Heritage revolvers pass through my hands, both through my personal use and through working in the gun industry. I can tell you, boy, they get loose. They get loose and finicky.
I actually have had that with one of my Heritage. You have to kind of screw in the pins.
And you know what? I have a Ruger Single 6 from the 1960s that I know personally. I've put more than 10,000 rounds through on the ranch. Jesus. Tight as a drum.
Yeah.
So, and when it comes to a revolver and rimfire, I would strongly suggest the Ruger Wrangler. They are around $200, and I bet Christmas time they even get a little cheaper.
Yeah, and maybe I should retract my statement because most of what I use my Heritage revolver for is strolling around the apartment acting like my cowboy.
I get that.
Which I think everyone does.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't act like you don't.
If you aren't pretending you're Doc Holliday with a revolver while Tombstone's on, I don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah, you have to wear a revolver when you're watching
Absolutely.
Westerns.
The Heritage and the Ruger both accept 6 rounds of 22 long rifle. Now, the Diamondback Sidekick, I threw that in here because I've been seeing those come through the shop for about a year.
Yeah.
They're awesome. They hold 9 rounds of 22.
I think I've seen them before, but I can't. In my head, I can't see what they look like.
They look exactly like the Heritage and just like the Ruger. I mean, basically all rimfire revolvers that are single action look very similar, just different colors. They are all black with rubber grips, and they hold 9 rounds, and they are cool. And those seem to be of really high quality as well. And I think those run around the $200 to $250 mark.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as a Jam-O-Matic or a semi-automatic, depending on if you ask me or Buck, I'm going to suggest the Taurus TX22. It's a little bit newer on the market, but I'll tell you what, in the past year and a half that we've had it on the market, I have seen more shooters that are doing like Steel Challenge and whatnot ditch their $1,000 Ruger Mark IV or whatever they have tricked out and go to a Taurus TX22 because they accept optics out of the box.
Ruger Mark 4s.
Telling you, man, I've had shooters come through the shop that are dumping them, and they are going to these Taurus TX22s. We're even seeing it on the professional shooter circuit now. They're running great. They are affordable, and the aftermarket capabilities. I mean, it's $25 for a Taurus branded mag, and I'm not the biggest Taurus fan.
It's tough to be a Taurus fan. It really is.
It's easy to sell Taurus. It's tough to love Taurus.
I like Tauruses. I have a G3C.
I got a G2C in the spice cabinet at home. I know how that
is. The difference between a G2C and a G3C, might I say, is drastic.
They are, absolutely. I think I picked up that G2C one time on like a Christmas special.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't figured out by now, buying guns around Christmas time is a really smart idea.
Well, and it's Christmas time and tax season are the two places where you can kind of see some deals on guns. But
yeah, I mean, Christmas time is really the way to go. It's really fantastic. So there are just a lot of options out there.
Yeah, and I totally spaced on what we were just talking about.
But, we were talking about that Taurus TX22. Yeah, you can't believe that people are going to that.
Yeah, and for 22s, yeah, I mean, if it were me, I'd be staying with the revolvers. If I'm going with a semi-automatic handgun, I'd rather go with a 9mm. I mean, granted, if you got a 22 Jam-O-Matic, as we've been saying, maybe it's good for clearing jams.
It is great training.
Maybe,
absolutely.
But
and this is not to say that every 22 semi-automatic is going to jam out of the box. We are just bagging on it a little bit. if you ask Buck.
I've never met a semi-automatic 22 that ate all kinds of ammo.
I gotcha.
But if you move up to 9mm, I think you're making a considerable upgrade. And you're getting into a little bit more ballistic performance, a lot of more ballistic performance. I've held many more 9mm handguns that eat any kind of ammo, more so than 22.
You mean like a Glock?
Many more. I will give Glock the credit where it's due. Yes, it will feed. It'll just look ugly as all get out doing it.
Is it the grip angle for you?
It's not the grip angle. It's the freaking block slide.
Is it that your dad at your age could have seen the same exact handgun go and be marketed as the brand new Glock, and it's the same Glock that it was 30 years ago?
Well, it isn't just the fact that their design hasn't changed in the past 50 years. It's just that it looks ugly as sin.
I gotcha.
And granted, yes, I understand. Glock is one of the most widely used handguns in the world.
I think it might even be the most widely used, at least by police departments in the world.
And
it is the most common.
Military. Yeah, because I think it's pretty much standard issue in Europe right now. And hats off to Glock. You'll never see me carrying one. And that's just because I can't imagine a brick of concrete up against my abdomen if I were ever carrying.
I get that. I mean, I was on that Glock train for a long time, and luckily I just caught a little bit of the CZ taste, and now that has spoiled me. I admit, since I touched the CZ, that Glock hasn't left my safe, and I don't know when it will again.
Right. And I think maybe I was just spoiled with starting out of the gate with that, with the CZ.
I wish I would have been spoiled out of the gate like you have now.
Yeah, well, and it's also nice. I will bring this up for budget guns and handguns. Military surplus.
Oh, and police surplus.
I still think that it's an extremely viable option nowadays. If you're training on the side, 7.62 by 25. I have a CZ52 and I have a TT33 or 38. I can't remember.
33, I think is what they are.
Yeah, I have both, and both are 7.62 by 25. It is decently expensive.
It's not the most expensive. Well, it's not like feeding a 357.
Yeah, but it's like 20 to 30 cents a round. I think I've bought it for. And when you look at 9mm prices, it's just tough. It's tough to look at that and say, okay, I'll
well, and I would argue the ballistics on that 7.62 Tokarev is fantastic.
Hot. Oh, it is hot.
Have you had the pleasure of finding a box of Hungarian hot loads yet?
I don't think I've found them. I think I will find them if I shoot enough ammo.
Yes, you will.
Because most of what I have is in like marked baggies.
Oh, perfect.
Which might not be the best way, but I think that's the most 7.62 by 25 Tokarev way to store ammo.
The only more thing that I would think would be a paper bag.
A paper bag, yes.
That's had some vodka or something spilled on the bottom.
A paper bag that has one rip at the bottom that you always have to carry it by so it doesn't spill out.
Exactly.
That is a 7.62 by 25 storage method right there.
Absolutely. That's just classic. That should always be that way.
Yeah.
Now, on the subject of handguns, I would argue, and Buck might have different feelings on this, I think your defensive handgun or the gun you are going to protect yourself with, maybe you're going to be carrying it every day. I hope you're carrying it every day. Or this is the one that sits on your nightstand, so if you have a bump in the night and you need to grab a gun, if your choice is grabbing the handgun, I would argue that the $400 to $500 minimum mark to ensure you were getting a quality piece. Now, that being said, the CZ75 BD on my hip right now, this is a police surplus out of Czech Republic. This was a $300 pistol. I think $400 to $500 at minimum. If you're going to trust your life to it, I mean, it's a very rough adage to think of, but what is your life worth?
So I'll bring up a great point that definitely needs to bring out. I heard a saying before, and it stuck with me, and it's the high point on your nightstand is better than the Glock on layaway.
Absolutely, I love that.
So I'll caveat that, and I'm glad Squib can kind of agree with me in the sense that you need something.
You got to have something.
You need
in my
something,
opinion, you need something.
And if you do need something, get something. You know, maybe it does take you a little longer to save up for that $600 Sig pistol.
Right.
Which, fantastic handguns. I love them. Haven't got one myself yet, but I've shot many. Love their handguns.
Had quite a few SIGs. You're gonna kill me for this, but man, that's just a different Glock with a different grip angle, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, with a different slide and a different grip angle, which are the two things I hate about Glock. Yep. Yeah, essentially. Yep. So, I mean, yeah, sure.
If somebody really wanted to spend the money, they wanted to go old school, Rock Island has that. I think it's like an M200. It's a 38 snub nose. Ooh. Brand new. They are like $230.
And see, revolvers are great if you want reliability.
Absolutely.
I will grant you that. I don't know what it is that just irks me about snub nose 38s.
Man, we could not be more opposite on this.
For nightstand guns. I mean, I don't know.
Now, as a nightstand gun, I'm saying if somebody came to me as a gun dealer and said, hey, I have $300 and I need to defend myself in my home.
Absolutely needed to.
Then I am glad we have that option available to them.
For sure.
But on the subject of snub nose 38s, man, I have been infatuated with them since I was a child. And that probably comes from watching mobster movies when I probably shouldn't have been too young.
Well, and those police 38s are absolutely famous too. Away from the snub nose and just regular police 38s.
Solid.
Just fantastic.
And you know, those on the surplus side or on the private market right now, those are bringing $300 to $500 depending on condition. That would be a good option for somebody.
And they're not bad handguns. They're pretty nice.
Now, is 38 my first choice for a defensive handgun for anybody? No.
I mean,
it is not. Does it work? And are there a lot of people 6 feet down because of it? Absolutely.
As long as you're not sneaking 357s in it, I think you're fine.
Yeah.
Really, 38 special. And this goes back to the beginning of the episode. I said, why would you put such a small pistol in someone's hands that doesn't know how to use it? So the big caveat that we have to put on this is whatever you get, no matter what you get, shoot it, train with it.
Yep.
Get used to it. Get confident, get accurate, know how to work the pistol. And, you know, there's a scene in Major Payne where he hangs upside down and he takes apart his pistol blindfolded. And I like to joke, me being the gun guy, that's what I do in my spare time is I just take apart my guns blindfolded hanging upside down.
Oh, I have a video of me assembling and disassembling my Glock 19
I bet
blindfolded.
You do, buddy.
Like 18 seconds.
I'm glad you didn't shoot a hole in the floor since you have to pull the trigger to take the slide off.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, I did completely clear a mag before I did because I'm like, I'm being blindfolded. This is already kind of dumb, so I might as well make sure I'm as safe as humanly possible.
And all jokes aside, I think you ought to be able to at least take apart the handgun. Maybe not blindfolded, but while you're watching TV, look at the TV and see if you can't find your way around that handgun.
Yep.
See if you can't take the slide off. Why not?
Can you feel the difference between if you have an external safety and your slide release? Can you feel the difference in your hand and where that is on the gun? I think that comes with familiarity.
Yes.
And I love the idea of selling somebody a gun today, and then they're going to go home and sit on their couch while they're watching a movie, and they're just going to be handling it and just getting used to it and acclimating themselves to it.
Yeah. And I think a great other part of that is site acquisition. Put it up, acquire your sites. What I like to do is I like to pick a spot on the wall where maybe I have a picture, and we have some wildlife pictures at home. So maybe I'll pick like the elk or the bobcat on the wall, and I'll put my handgun up, and I won't look through the sights. I'll kind of just see where I can line up the barrel and aim for a certain point. And then I'll look down my sights to see, okay, how close was I just sticking it out and try and aim without using sights and trying to get a feeler for that. And I think with enough practice, I think that's not unreasonable. for someone to do.
No, absolutely. I'm a big fan of at-home training. I'm not saying everybody shouldn't take a class because I think everybody should go to school a little bit. I mean, I've been shooting for more than 20 years now. I have shot with all kinds of people from military contractors to professional shooters, and you know what? I learn something every time I go to a class. But that home dry fire training, that is underrated, and more people need to be doing that.
Yeah.
Sit on your couch like Buck was saying, and pick a spot on the wall. And I would love for somebody to be dry firing their gun safely, of course. Clearing it and making sure it's not something that shouldn't be dry fired.
Sure.
There's nothing in my mind wrong with doing 50 or 100 repetitions of dry firing.
Yeah, as long as it's center fire. No 22s.
Yeah, no 22 and no revolvers with a pointy hammer. Make sure it's flat.
Yeah.
Or if you have a really safe way to do with a revolver is take a paper towel, fold it up, and put it where the hammer is going to fall.
Oh, okay.
If you don't have a shop rag. Oh, yeah. It's a really easy way to do it.
I didn't realize how fun it would be to practice because reloads are another part of that. Granted, I would ease your way into it and kind of get used to the handgun before anything. But reloads, I didn't realize how fun it was to do those in your house.
Oh, absolutely.
Where I was just like, get a full mag holders, put them on your belt.
Reload
a couple times.
Fantasize that you have a bump in the night, and you're like, "Oh man, got a John Wick mag change."
This guy made his last mistake.
I already dropped your 14 other buddies. That's why I'm changing the mag.
Yeah, I got a couple of those. One of them is I have a 357 revolver, and it's a cowboy gun. And so I imagine myself as John Wayne, and someone breaks my house. I'm like,
that.
oh yeah, pull out my revolver, my lever gun. Both in 357 mag, absolutely wonderful.
I think if you aren't having fun with guns, guns are something that should always be taken seriously and safely.
Yep, and they're not toys.
But if you can't have fun, you're doing it wrong.
Yes.
If you can't smile when you make a joke about it, or you can't have a smile on your face when you're at the range, you're doing it wrong.
And I think gun culture has done a pretty good job of keeping that in the right mindset of making sure, this is serious, but at the same time,
it can be fun and enjoyable.
Guns are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Guns are cool. And Brandon Herrera says it best when he does his award. I forget what it's called right off the top of my head, but he does an award, the Darwin Awards, with gun accidents. And he disclaimers at the beginning of every episode, hey, guns are awesome. Guns are fun. Guns are cool. But don't be an idiot with them and treat them seriously. And that's definitely something we can all agree with. Another one on the handguns. Canik has been spitting out some impressively priced and valuable firearms.
I think I first started hearing that Canik name before I really started working in the gun industry. That was about 4 years ago. And I had a guy at work that was like, hey, I just got this new Canik. And I'm like, I thought he was talking about a tool for a car.
What the heck is that? Yeah.
And he showed it to me. I think it was like a TP9SF, if that sounds right. And
TP9's like their base model. And then they have, it's like Savage. They have so many different acronyms that they just stick at the end of it.
Yeah. I remember handling that gun for the first time, and it felt fantastic. Mm-hmm. To me, it felt like a $700 pistol, and I was shocked when he told me I think he paid $599.
Yeah.
I think Canik is an awesome company that I hope their name becomes more common and synonymous with like the Big Ten group.
Yeah.
I really hope we see them become a bigger competitor because I think for out of the box value, man, if somebody had a little bit extra money to spend, if we're not talking a $300 or $400 gun, buying a Canik, that's on the list.
And so if we look at like some of the top 5, in my head, this is my head. So if people disagree with me, feel free to leave a comment. But a big 5 in my head would be Sig Sauer, Glock, Taurus. They would be in there because they do sell a lot of pistols. M&P, which is Smith & Wesson, throw that in there. And then honestly, I'd like Canik to take that 5th spot.
I would be okay.
And not in any specific order, but in terms of handgun sales, and it's ironic because Squib is the one that works at a gun shop, not me. But I think that's most of what I see on the shelf and ready to go, brand new, not used.
Mm-hmm. I have only had one used Canik come through the shop. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it shows that people are buying them, liking them, and keeping them.
And those guns are meant to be upgraded too. Mm-hmm. And that's what we should definitely say about guns on a budget. No matter what you get, don't be afraid to upgrade.
No,
especially if you get, because guns on a budget could mean, hey, I don't have the money for a CZ75 right now that might cost $600-900 somewhere in there. But I do have the money to buy a Taurus G3C for $300.
Mm-hmm.
And then, hey, I just got a raise at work. I got a promotion or I switched jobs and now I make, $20,000 more per year. Now I can squeeze a little bit more and, you can keep that G3C and then just get a new gun.
See, and I'm such a horse trader. I would immediately tell you to take that extra $300 you got and trade that G3C in and buy a new toy.
That's the difference between us, because I am a collector, and so I'm like, well, what's the harm in just keeping a G3C, even though maybe it won't hold any value? Because they came out with a GX4, and suddenly the G3Cs are priced like G2Cs.
And,
and I feel like I overpaid for mine, but I didn't.
That's all right. You just stay away from the gun counter at Christmas time and don't beat yourself up.
That's yeah. I have my Taurus G3C. Would it be nice to have a GX4? Yes, it would. Will I go out and buy one? Probably not.
Right. And you and I, as far as carry guns go, we have very different opinions there. I used to be about carrying the smallest, lightest 9mm I could. And now I carry a full size CZ every day.
Full size CZ from
with a spare mag on the other hip.
80s, 90s CZ vintage.
Yep.
Yeah, this man also carried a CZ 52, people. So I mean,
it was for 2 weeks, and it's because
and he was the classiest guy in the gun shop.
That's when Buck and I became really good friends. He walked in, saw that was on my hip, and he's like, "Yep, we're gonna be friends now."
And then the week after he sold it, I offered to buy it from him.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm sorry, man, I sold it.
That's the thing, man. To me, if I have never had a gun that hasn't been like a family heirloom.
Yeah.
I've never had a gun pass through my hands that I'm like, no, I couldn't get rid of this.
Yeah.
I can get rid of anything for the right price. You can buy the CZ75 on my hip right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't sell it to you because I already got it pre-sold to a buddy.
You better be careful what you say.
It's already pre-sold to somebody. Sorry.
Dang it.
He's paying me the rest next week.
I lost the bid on that gun twice now.
Yep, twice. Well, if it makes you feel better, it's going to my brother.
I guess so. I guess you have an obligation.
Yep, a little bit of an obligation there, but and now its place will be taken by my CZ75 SPO1 Tactical.
That's good.
It's just that's a sexy handgun.
So I mean, just to wrap up, on the handguns, you got a lot of options. On the shotguns, you probably have even more options. On the rifle, I would take a look at your application, because you get to a point there where you have so many options. Okay, you kind of gotta start narrowing it down and figure out what you really need out of your application and out of your guns. And I shoot a lot of bolt guns. Squib shoots a lot of ARs. Which I say that you need an AR.
Next week,
oh my gosh,
we are ordering the Bushmaster Bravo Zulu.
That just sounds too expensive.
Actually, not bad. I couldn't get them.
$1,200?
No, actually, we're under 4 digits, my friend. We are under 4 digits.
$9.99.99.
Not quite. No, I think with shipping, I think it'll be at the shop for about a little under $900. Yeah. It checks all my boxes I want. It's got a 2-stage trigger. It's already got a cool compensator. It's got the furniture I want, so I don't have to change anything on this gun right out of the box.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see, because for the viewers, I'm also a reloader. It'll be interesting to see how the thing shoots accuracy wise.
Absolutely, we'll take it out to the range and we'll give it some testing because. And plus, Bushmaster offered 10% off for a first-time create an account, and you can use it on firearms, and that's what tipped it over the edge for me. Free shipping and 10% off. Yeah, got me.
Tough to beat.
I've had an affinity for Bushmaster since I was a kid. I mean, growing up during GWOT, that was a very big gun manufacturer name we heard about from contractors, from people working security. I mean, Bushmaster in 2002 to 2010, that was a very common brand.
And they're a good rifle.
They are. They're solid.
They are a good rifle.
And I'm not paying, that much for a Noveske.
Well, I don't think you should either.
I think that Ghetto Blaster is gonna happen.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
So I'll put the caveat also, and I know there's quite a few in this episode, but accuracy trumps.
Absolutely.
I'll say that first and foremost. So no matter what option you go with, hop online. You can avoid some buyer's mistakes by looking at forums.
Oh, yeah.
There's some nasty people in those forums.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about a lot of the time.
But ignore those guys. But
it's definitely not us.
I wanted a Mossberg Patriot for the longest time.
I read on those for a while.
And I will take a second just to dig on Mossberg. The Patriot rifles, I don't think I have heard more than 2 or 3 good things about those rifles. And granted, maybe they fixed their QC. Maybe they're pumping out good rifles now. I'm not seeing them.
I think their popularity's kind of gone. I think the Ruger Americans killed them.
The Ruger American and the Savage Axis. The Savage Axis is at 300 to 450, and the Ruger American is 500 to 650. And what's not covered in there? Not a lot.
Yeah. And I've been at DEF CON for almost 2 years now. I've never had anybody order in a Mossberg Patriot, but I can't tell you how many Savage Axis and Ruger Americans I've ordered because I just lose track.
Almost me.
Yeah, almost.
I've almost ordered a Ruger American and 300 Blackout, but no, those Mossberg Patriots, and it's a shame because they're stocks. I think they're one of the few manufacturers that make a wood stock for their Patriot rifles, and I'm a wood stock kind of guy.
I may be a handgun and AR guy, but man, wood furniture on a gun is where I find home.
Yeah, key. So browse around, do your research, go on forums. This isn't something that you need to decide, I need a budget gun, and then you go out to a gun shop and then you buy a budget gun. I think that's probably the worst place to start because you're taking a day to make a decision that will cost you. It's going to cost you a lot of money. $150 to some people is a lot of money. $300 is a lot of money to a lot of people, including me. So if I'm shelling out that kind of money, I'm not making that decision in a day. I'm not making that decision in a week. I'm going to stew on it and make an educated purchase. Squib, you're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, it's just impulse buyer Squib doesn't know what self-control is. So,
and see, that's why you need a well-rounded knowledge about firearms and cartridges and ballistics, which it sounds like a lot. I wouldn't say it's that much, but that way you can kind of make an educated guess and shorten that time to purchase, like that K31. Really, it's just because the money. If I had the money, it'd probably be in my gun safe right now.
Shoot me a text tomorrow. I'll put it in the safe for you.
7.5 by 55 Swiss is a wonderful round.
And if I'm correct, I think a lot of people are still shooting that in competition.
They are. And Europe still has a lot of World War II vintage match.
Really?
Vintage matches, competitions. I actually think Mosins are some of the most coveted and some of the most accurate rifles, which is almost heartbreaking to say because I'm a huge Mauser fan. Right. I'm a huge 1903 fan. And I've heard the Mosin beat out both rifles a couple of times.
Well, they've got $20 million to go pick up fresh barrels
from,
I
know.
So it makes it a little easier.
There's got to be one that's accurate, right?
Right, exactly.
$20 million. So, I mean, budget rifles and budget firearms in general, they're out there. They're still out there. You'll get a lot of naysayers, and I think this is more common since COVID, because COVID hijacked all the prices.
Yeah, COVID made things whack.
And I think many people were so discouraged that they said, we're never going to see prices come back down, or we're never going to find value in firearms for price ever again. And I just don't think that's true.
I don't think it is. I think we're already starting to see a little bit of a turn on that.
Yeah.
Ammo, like we said earlier, ammo prices are coming down. ARs are getting more realistic again, and I would say that the quality hasn't dropped on them. It's just that things are changing, and for the better.
I think manufacturers are making good strides. Savage is making a hell of a bolt gun. Tikka is gaining popularity very fast in America. Their bolt rifles can range 550. I think I've seen one to however much you want to pay for a Tikka.
I got a T3X in the shop right now around like $1,300.
So so I mean, you got a lot of price ranges, but from what I've heard, absolute glass, absolute tack driver. I mean, what more can you ask of a gun other than it be accurate, attractive to the eye, and useful in your application? Tikka is doing a really good job of that. So.
Right.
Good places to look.
Absolutely.
In that case, don't be afraid to do some YouTube research as well. Great videos on there.
Oh yeah, and we could mention a million different channels.
We could.
I mean, there's a million out there. I'm not going to start playing the game of who's my favorites. But,
right. In fact, we're going to have an episode on that too.
That'll be
so
perfect.
We're going to expose ourselves to who we like and don't like. So.
Well, I guess to kind of close up all of the subject in the episode, Buck, why do we feel like we can help people? What experience do you have as a shooter here?
I am a 24-year-old ex-college student. I say that. I've been out of college for 2-3 years now, and that's okay. I remember what it was like going to gun shops. Okay, I have $500 in my account. I have to live on $500 for the next 3 weeks. What can I get? And at one point, I'm not sure how much money I had in the account, but I purchased a Mosin gun for $300 as an investment piece, not even shoot. For $300, had a matching bayonet. All the serial numbers matched on the bayonet and the rifle. And so I was like, yeah, this is what I need for my collection. And if you're a collector too, that's the kind of eye that you need to have.
And numbers matching is king.
Yeah. And for $300, I said, okay, what kind of value is here? And I saw the serial numbers. I saw the bayonet. And I said, okay, there's value in this in the sense that 3 years from now, am I going to be able to get this same package for $300? And you can easily say no.
No,
because
not at
3
all.
years ago, 3 years before that, it was $150,
Mhm.
and now it's $300. What's it going to do?
Absolutely.
Very rarely do you see guns drop in price. It does happen. Taurus judges are a great example of that.
I think especially military surplus. And we're definitely, I think we're on the downturn of the world's military surplus being available.
Yes, unfortunately.
But I mean, those have done nothing but appreciate in value. I don't care what surplus gun you want to talk about. If you look at when they were first imported in this country and offered on the market compared to where they're at now, they've gone up exponentially in some cases.
1903s are up to $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. M1 Garands floating around the same price. Some people want way more for them, but from what I've seen,
I found a few that I was able to sell around $1,400, $1,500.
Yeah, $1,400.
But man, I've seen some beauties come through that I would have happily forked over $2,000 for.
Absolutely, absolutely, and some companies won't take less than $2,000 for them. German K98s can't find those for.
Nope, M48's going up through the roof too.
Yep.
It seems like the surplus side, it's just those do nothing but appreciate.
It is.
So
and I think
when they're new.
It is slim pickings for the military surplus. I don't think you should lose hope because I did buy a CZ52 for $300 off Gunbroker.
Yep.
So that's a rare occurrence, but it does happen.
Yep.
Pick your deals.
Absolutely.
And pick your guns. Lesser known doesn't mean it's bad. You guys have an Italian pistol in there. That I'd actually really like.
Tenfoglio.
Yeah, but it's 32 ACP, so it's like, what am I going to do with that?
Different, yeah.
So yeah, that's a great way to kind of sum up the episode in the sense that you got to be picky. You got to know what you need it for, and you got to know in the sense of what manufacturers kind of do what I'm looking for.
Nothing wrong with being picky when it comes to guns, man. Nothing wrong with that at all.
And the saying and not to draw this out any longer. But my dad and I have a saying when we go to auctions and nothing happens. We say there's nothing wrong. You can't be mad at not spending money. You just can't.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, can't be mad at spending money. After losing thousands of dollars worth of guns in auctions, I'm okay with having the thousands of dollars in my savings account.
Yep.
After so many years of doing this.
And Squib will go and impulse buy a 500 rounds of 9mm because he wants more shiny on his desk.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
So, all right. Well, I think that caps out the first episode. Thanks, Squib, for joining me.
Absolutely, Buck.
You're going to see a lot more Squib in the seasons and the episodes to come. We're looking to do weekly uploads for now until we get a little bit more time in our belt and some more subscribers. I think we can quicken those uploads and start doing 2 weeks. Hopefully, that's the goal.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a chance to subscribe, comment, like, any of that good stuff, people are going to be listening to this on Spotify as well, Squib.
Fantastic.
So we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on Patreon, we're on Instagram. More to come. But if you did not get the chance, give this video a like. Feel free to comment any of the stuff that we said that was heresy. We love to hear it, despite what people think. And then anything else, if you want to support us, Patreon, right now we're only doing a $5 per month membership, something small. Until we get going, we want to pump out some content, some quality gun culture content. And I think once we get into that and kind of get some more people on board, Squib, we can start putting some actual tiers together. Until then, I think we're looking at just a $5 a month contribution. If you like the content, like what we do here, subscribe, and we'll definitely be pumping out more.
You can definitely contribute to our Dr. Pepper fund.
Yeah.
We just hope to make this better and better every chance we get.
These are late night episodes, people. We
Absolutely.
record late at night, so Dr. Pepper is what powers us.
Exactly. Wonderful. Well, Buck, you got anything else?
No, I don't think so. Take a look at our social media. Take a look at everywhere where we're at. Share with your friends. Gun culture episodes. We might be coming out with some shorts here soon. Probably on some of our more dastardly heresy statements. Because I know someone's going to hate me for hating Glock, but that's okay.
The Austrian murder Lego.
I love the hate. So... But all right, thanks again, Squib, for joining me.
Absolutely, Buck. Thanks for having me. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Until the next visit to the garage, stay safe, people.